I'm going to come to that, but she's not here to talk about abuse of women. She's talking about the infringement on women's rights to fairness and equality in women's sport, which she herself has personally suffered from, right? Now, you have shown zero support for any women like Riley Gaines.
That's not true. I just said it's an important story. I literally said it's an important story that we need to listen to.
Last week, you said... That's what I said. Last week...
Piers, I literally just said 2 minutes ago, it's an important story.
If I may remind you, I know a week is a long time in James Barr's memory lapse, but
it was over a week because you've been on holiday.
Last week, I had 3 days off. Last week, you said that the Olympics should be gender neutral.
Well, I still think it would solve a lot of problems.
It would solve 0 problems.
It would solve so many problems.
And my point... And
I'm not a sports commentator. I don't know sport.
Anybody you don't agree with, you call woke. So if you're going to call anyone you don't agree with woke or extreme or lefty,
yeah, literally, I don't even know what that word means.
I'm going to call you all that.
Let me say something. It's the past tense.
You saying that I'm a far-right homophobe. My response to that is saying that men can identify as women. And lesbians who don't want to date these men who identify as women. That is homophobic. You are using lesbians as your political pawn, and that's sick. Lesbians don't want this
Riley, you've just come out with that from nowhere.
So why are you calling a political pawn?
That wasn't part of this discussion. Where's that come from?
Man, this one sure does heat up as Riley Gaines, Ernest Owens, James Barr, and Esther Krakue all go to battle here on the Piers Morgan Show. It's an interesting debate. I had fun watching it, and I think you guys will too. So let's go ahead and just check it out.
But I have no issue with James and his sexuality.
Thank you.
But why do I have to celebrate it for a month?
I should say no issue with yours, Piers.
Well, yeah,
but I would rather you didn't ram it down my throat all the time.
There's no danger of that happening. But I just wanted to... But to be clear, there's no straight month, right? There's no celebration of my sexuality or ramming of anything down people's throats. But Riley, before we all lose the plot here, how do you feel about enforced virtue signalling, where if you don't go along with this, then you're kind of lambasted as a bigot? We see it in all sorts of different ways. I remember with the George Floyd murder happened, a horrific thing, which I wrote and spoke about a lot, about how horrific it was. And it had to affect real change, which it did. But that day when everyone was told to do a black square on their Instagram for a day, and I just didn't want to do it. And I instead posted a picture of myself in my local park with a bottle of rosé and got completely annihilated by people who felt this meant I must therefore be a racist. And I was like, no, I spent all morning actually debating this on television. I wrote a column about it, and then I fancied a glass of rosé, and I fancied exercising my free speech rights to post a picture of said bottle of rosé on my Instagram. And yet I literally had my kids ring me, my sons, who were being bombarded with abuse. What is your father doing? Why isn't he doing the black square? And I feel the same about the backlash that comes with things like Pride Month. It's like, if you don't go along with all this, somehow you must be homophobic, which I'm not. Your thoughts?
Right. No, I totally agree. I just want to know what posting a black square on Instagram, how that helps quite literally anybody. And yeah, to your point, Piers, look, the Pride movement, it's not just one day, it's not just 1 month. The LGBTQ plus community has over half a calendar year in days. There's Trans Visibility Day, there's Asexual Awareness Day, there's Gender Fluid Day. I mean, I can't even keep up. And yeah, it's not even about that these days exist or that they're divisive, I think, in their true nature. The problem is, just as you said, the backlash, the risk, the threats that we face if we don't participate, or even if we dare to question this. And again, it's in every single realm of society. This has seemingly overtaken the public square. And I think the same sentiment you had, what people do behind closed doors, by all means, that's the beauty of living in America, in my case. That's the beauty of where we live.
Of course.
But I don't want it to cost my taxpayer dollars, and I don't want to be forced to support this, because as a Christian, I mean, I don't support it, but that doesn't mean I want to infringe on someone else's rights, just as I don't want my rights as a woman infringed upon.
Well, let me play a clip before we come to the rest of the pack. This is Jordan Peterson, who's gotten to a furore over his video about Pride, where he says a sexually narcissistic movement headed for a fall because it's been taken over by the radical trans lobby. Let's take a look.
There's a real tinge of narcissism, sexual narcissism, the trans pushing, gender affirming butchers and liars primarily target young people whose most likely outcome on the sexual front is homosexuality. I don't like the flag. I think it's a piece of idiocy. I don't understand why it changes every bloody week. And I think the surgery, the gender affirming care movement, I think it is Nazi Auschwitz level awful.
Mr. Barr.
What on earth is that closeted gay man wearing? That is an abomination. That is a crazy load of absolute bullshit. I'm sorry. That is insane. How dare he say that about Auschwitz? Gay people were killed alongside Jewish people and disabled people in the Holocaust. That is disgusting, Piers. That is disgusting. You shouldn't even be giving that airtime.
Well, he's a very famous guy.
Yeah, but we shouldn't be listening to what he thinks. I mean, he says loads of nonsense.
Well, you say loads of nonsense. I don't deplatform you.
No, I mean, I do agree with you. I agree with you, James. Wow, that drawing likeness to Nazis and Auschwitz is a bit extreme. However, he does make a valid point that.
Well, he was talking specifically about
the butchery of gender-affirming care.
That's what he was talking about.
I'm sorry. There is nothing positive about basically castrating people and chopping off their breasts and their sexual organs to try and affirm anything other than some deep psychological distress. And I think that's the point he should have made instead of comparing it to Auschwitz, because it doesn't always have to be compared to Auschwitz. That's a very touchy topic.
Everything that's been said here so far, I could write an essay about it. I have so much to say, and it's difficult to just respond to literally all of the insane things that have been coming out of your mouths over the last 10 minutes, to be honest.
What was insane
it would
about
take
anything Riley said?
I do find behind closed doors
what was
quite
insane
offensive.
about anything Riley said? This is what Riley
Listen,
Gaines...
can I just reply to Esther first?
You can.
I don't want to disrespect
everything Riley ever says, people like you go, it's insane. And when I say, what is it she said that's insane?
It's a great question.
You want to move on?
No, I think what she said about how she doesn't agree with it, but whilst also saying,
I
don't... Well, that's not really supportive,
have to
is
agree
it?
with you.
It's not supportive.
She doesn't have to agree
why
with
does everyone need to support
They
something
don't.
that
They don't.
do?
But let me just try and make one single point, if I can.
It's not compulsory
please
to
make a
support
point.
anybody.
It's not.
Holy smokes, what an idiot. And what's with that stretched out shirt? Looks like he needs to do some laundry. But seriously, what about the hypocrisy here? This guy disregards and disrespects everything Riley Gaines says, but then everything he says is just completely right and you gotta respect it? I mean, come on, dude, get real.
It's not that these concerns that Riley raises aren't important or that women's safety isn't important. All of that is important. And what happened to Riley, it's an important story that we should listen to. Everyone should. And the left shouldn't be attacking you for that.
But I'm sensing a but here, right? A but is coming up. I just said but 3 times.
Everyone should. And the left shouldn't be attacking you for that. That literally shouldn't happen. No one should be attacking anyone.
Okay.
We should listen with empathy.
Yes.
But I think the issue occurs when we look at abuse rates in America for women, right? It's 1 in 3 women that are abused by men in America. You haven't commented on that. You haven't commented on abortion. You haven't commented on so many things. Trump discussing that it's okay to grab a woman's... You don't make comments on those issues, and those issues are affecting more women than a trans woman in a changing room, because there aren't that many. There's only 700,000 trans women in America.
So because
they
Riley...
can't all be abusing women. That would be insane. They're busy.
All right, I'll let Riley answer that herself.
There's a reason why. There's a reason why for this, though. The truth of the matter is that, thank you. The truth of the matter is that there's always this conversation about the woke group, the far left group that's pushing an agenda. But we got to be real about the people like her who's pushing a far right agenda that oftentimes is fixated on coming after people of color, coming after queer people, and also pushing an agenda that
Ernest, when did Riley Gaines be far right?
You don't even know what woke means.
Hold up. Riley Gaines was a collegiate swimmer who was forced to share a locker room with a biological man, who was forced to compete in a women's swimming competitions against a biological man, who won everything and who broke records. So, what are you talking about, dude? This has nothing to do with race. This has nothing to do with LGBT. What Riley Gaines stands for is for keeping men out of women's sports, and she speaks from her own experience. You're injecting all this other stuff to try to make her look bad. That's nonsense, dude. You gotta check yourself. And who are you anyways? Nobody was even talking to you. He was asking Riley a question.
Hold on. Okay, that's fine.
Right?
That's fine. Can I just ask you a question?
And that's fine.
Hold on, Ernest.
Right?
Can I ask you a question just to clarify, because I'm none the wiser? Define
Sure.
far right. What's the definition of far right?
Far-right are people that are pushing homophobic, transphobic views, misprescribing, misdefining terms such as woke. None of you all seem to really know what woke means, but you like to use it.
I wrote a book about it.
That's not a
So if you're
definition.
going to use
I
woke,
literally wrote a
It's just
book
people
about
you
it.
disagree with.
I'm going to call
That's
you all
far-right to you,
far-right
people you disagree with.
conservatives.
Wait, see,
Look, you
okay,
calling me-
hang on.
No, it's the same thing with
Hang
left.
on.
Anybody you don't agree with, you call woke. So if you're gonna call anyone
the
you don't
only
agree with
person who
woke
has said
or
woke this
extreme or
entire
lefty,
time.
Yeah,
then
literally.
I'm
I don't even know what that
gonna
word
call you all
means.
Who has said woke?
I'm gonna call you
Let
all
me say
that.
something.
It's the past tense.
You saying that
Like
I'm
I
a
said.
far-right homophobe. My response to that is saying that men can identify as women and lesbians who don't want to date these men who identify as women. That is homophobic. You are using lesbians as your political pawn, and that's sick. Lesbians don't want this
Riley, you've just come out with that
Right,
from
so
nowhere.
why are
That
you
wasn't
calling a political
anywhere-
pun?
That wasn't
Why
part
are
of
you
this
calling it a
discussion. Where's that
political
come
pun?
from?
Because he called me a homophobe, and I'm sitting here saying I'm fighting for
Well,
the
I
sex-based
think
rights of lesbians,
We
of
get
women.
emotional about this, and we're right to.
Get
because
emotional about a lot
we're
of things.
discussing our
Why-
rights. and it is
how do you
upsetting.
conflate? How do you conflate?
Hang on,
how do you
please don't
conflate
talk over each other.
transphobia
Hang on,
with
hang on.
fighting for
Ernest,
women's
Ernest, hang on.
rights?
Don't talk over each other because otherwise we can't hear what's going on.
Yes.
You see, James, it's interesting because you showed zero support for Riley's
That's
campaign.
not actually what happened. I just showed some
no,
support.
I'm talking about her campaign. You wanted to campaign about everything, but she's actually chosen the one that has directly impacted
No,
her
my
life.
question is,
No, hang
why
on.
aren't you
I haven't asked you
concerned
the
about
question.
that too? Well, let's ask Riley if she
I'm
is
about
concerned
to
about it.
She hasn't been
you-
hit by a man, James.
No, I'm going to come to that, but she's not here to talk about abuse of women. She's talking about the infringement on women's rights to fairness and equality in women's sport, which she herself has personally suffered from, right? Now, you have shown zero support for
That's
any
not
women
true.
like Riley Gaines.
That's not true. I just said it's an important
literally
story.
said in
I
sport-
literally said it's an important story that
Sorry,
we need to
last
listen to.
week you
That's
said
what I
it-
said.
last week you
Piers,
lit-
I literally just said 2 minutes ago it's an
If I
important
may
story.
say, if I
that
may
we need to
remind
listen
you,
to.
I know a week is a long time in James Barr's memory lapse, but
But it was
last,
over a week because she's been on holiday.
Last week, I had 3 days off. Last week, you said that the Olympics should be gender neutral.
Well, I still think it would solve a lot of problems.
It would solve zero problems.
It would solve so
and that
many
shows,
problems.
And my point, and
But
I'll
I'm
bring-
not a sports
Let me bring
commentator.
Riley-
I don't know sport.
Oh,
but I'm
come
telling you,
on,
I think we should
James.
listen to Riley's story. But my issue is not the story or the concern. My issue is that it's the only concern. And then when we drill it down,
It's literally
and we
her
say,
campaign.
well, what do you think about abortion rights in America? What do you think about what Trump says? You don't want to comment on
What
it.
do you think
what
about the
made-
Uyghur Muslims in China?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. Maybe that's
I
her
don't-
truth.
What have you tweeted about the Uyghur Muslims? You haven't.
tweeted about that.
So you're a
I
bloody
don't know
hypocrite.
about it.
So be
I'm not a
quiet.
hypocrite, but I'm
Okay,
saying
so
Not
here's
everyone
the
wants to do
hypocrisy.
every
why. I'm
This is
trying
the-
to explain why the
Sorry
left
here.
get
All
upset.
right, fine.
It's
Let me-
because we're
let
looking
me
at it and
bring
we're going,
Riley-
the only thing you're
Here.
bringing up
There-
is
Let
trans.
me-
is-
let-
but the
let me bring in
hypocrisy-
Riley. Let's try and get some
That's
order
fine.
here. This is
But here's
exactly
the
my...
issue. The
Ernest,
hypocrisy
wait a
is-
moment,
the
please.
hypocrisy
Wait
is-
a moment, Ernest.
Yeah.
Riley, here's my point. We've just seen right there the hypocrisy.
It's not
Right
hypocrisy.
there. Right?
I'm
Is
trying
that-
to explain.
When I say to James Barr, why don't you talk about Uyghur Muslims oppression? Why
Why
should
don't you
I?
talk about Uyghur Muslims?
Why should I? I do.
Right.
Why should I? He doesn't. But he wants you to talk about all
No,
these
I
other
don't.
issues.
I am trying to explain why we get upset. It's because we look at it and we go, why is J.K. Rowling only concerned about this one thing?
She's
if
not only
really
concerned about
women?
that. She
And
tweets
why-
about a lot of stuff. Let me bring in Riley. You've been very
I
patient
think it's
listening to this.
entirely
Riley.
disingenuous to say that this is the only issue that I care about. I spend majority of my time advocating for this issue, but that's not to say that I don't speak on other issues. A big campaign of mine and what I am advocating for now is women in prisons. Women who are most of the time victims of domestic assault, domestic abuse, to which your point, I will say any form of sexual violence, any form of domestic violence that women face is entirely wrong and should be denounced, and those who commit it should be criminalized. But a large push right now is for fighting for these women in prisons, incarcerated women. They still deserve sex-based protections and their rights too.
But it always comes back to this
regardless of
one
being-
issue, which only affects less women than the major.
that's
issues.
Does that make it? Does that
No,
make it
it doesn't
valid?
make it wrong,
But that
and
was
it's
the point I
okay
was
that
making
that's
earlier.
one of
Let
your
me bring in-
issues,
let me
but
bring
I'm
in-
explaining
all
why
right.
we get upset.
Right.
Don't talk over each other. Ernest.
Right. Yes. The point I'm making here is that that's exactly the point I was trying to make earlier, is that while she cares about other issues that are very important, and I agree with her on several of those issues, she's being platformed only when it comes to particular issues that are divisive, that are transphobic, that do not
They're
show
not
the full nuance
transphobic,
of her
Ernest.
explored interest.
It's not
And so that's what it
transphobic
is.
to think
The
6
issue
foot
is
4
that
inch
we're having a
biological
conversation.
males
Why is
should
this
not be
conversation
competing
being
against
conflated
women.
with Pride Month? Why is this being conflated with Pride Month, Piers? Why?
It's not being
Why
conflated.
is she here talking about, why is she in the conversation around Pride Month?
She wasn't. She was in a conversation about her book, which then led to a conversation about Pride Month.
No, but she's also
Because
in a
Pride Month
conversation about
affects
Pride Month.
every
Why is there a
single person.
conflation there?
Pride Month affects
Because it goes aligned with your far right agenda.
Why
that's why you're bothered.
She's not far right.
That's the issue that we're talking about on this channel.
I think he's talking about
Ernest, let me ask you. Ernest, why do we have to have... I want to ask Ernest a question. Why do we have to have a month of Pride?
Go ahead.
Why?
Because the reason why is because it's people like you who don't understand why we really have it. It's not really about sexuality. It's about allowing people who are like myself, who don't feel like they're being represented or being protected in a world and a society where people like Riley gets a platform to spew misinformation.
What's the misinformation?
Representation.
What's the misinformation, Ernest?
The misinformation about gender.
Tell me one thing she said. Tell me one thing she said that's wrong.
Weaponizing transgender people.
Tell me one thing she said, Ernest, that's wrong.
That is just the biggest.
Ernest.
And I just said that.
Ernest.
And I just said it.
I think it's the vibe,
I want you to correct one thing she said that was wrong.
Can you hear?
Yeah, answer me.
So, transgender people's existence does not threaten the existence of women.
No one has said that. Nobody said that.
But it is the vibe, though, isn't it?
No.
That is the vibe of this whole debate.
No.
It is, though. That's definitely the vibe. I'd say that's the vibe of your whole channel, actually.
Ernest, nobody has ever said
the vibe.
that. No one said that.
These dudes have completely lost their minds. That's the vibe? Are you kidding me? If you can't understand why Riley Gaines is up there after all that explanation and you're going to conflate it into this transphobia, look, you're just trying to do what you're accusing her of doing. You're using your platform to try to make her look bad, okay? It's ridiculous, and I'm over it. We're going to cut the interview. We're going to cut the debate right there. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I got a good laugh, and if you guys did too, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.